Shane Parrish's clear thinking. Turning ordinary moments into extraordinary results is fundamentally about mastering the inner terrain, the default ways your mind reacts, the internal strengths you can develop, and creating a disciplined decision-making process so that your life isn't dictated by impulse, ego, or social pressure. At its heart, Parrish argues that clear thinking is not a passive trait, but a skill, something you build, practice, and protect. The very first lesson he draws is that where you stand, your position, heavily influences how well you can think. If you're under-equipped, emotionally depleted, or overwhelmed, then even your best-intentioned decisions are likely to be suboptimal. But if you deliberately put yourself in a good position by preparing, building habits, and maintaining internal balance, you give yourself the best shot at making rational, wise choices. If this is your first time, subscribe so you don't miss out. Let's continue. From positioning arises a cascading set of defaults, the mental enemies Parrish describes, that sabotage almost all of us. These defaults are fourfold: emotion, ego, social, and inertia. The emotion default kicks in when we react based on how we feel in the moment rather than according to reason or evidence. The ego default triggers when our need to protect our self-image or status distorts our judgment. The social default pushes us to follow the crowd, even when the crowd is wrong, and the inertia default makes us stick to familiar patterns, even when change is necessary. These defaults are deeply embedded, survival mechanisms embedded by evolution, but in modern life, they often lead to regrettable decisions, bad leadership, and missed opportunities. Parrish doesn't just highlight the problem, though. He offers a way forward by cultivating 4 key strengths to counteract those bad defaults: self-accountability, self-knowledge, self-control, and self-confidence. Self-accountability means owning your actions, your abilities, and your limitations, not blaming external events, but accepting that you still have agency. Self-knowledge means deeply understanding your strengths, weaknesses, and blind spots, because without knowing how you think poorly, you can't correct it effectively. Self-control allows you to manage your impulses, resist emotional hijack, and pause before reacting. Self-confidence isn't arrogance or rigidity. It's trusting that even if you're wrong sometimes, you can navigate change, admit mistakes, and recalibrate. As these strengths grow, Parrish encourages the creation of intentional defaults in your environment. Rather than hoping for willpower in moments of stress or temptation, you build safeguards and automatic rules so that your default behavior aligns with your long-term objectives. For example, you might adopt a rule that you always sleep on a big decision, or that you never send emotionally charged emails without waiting a full day. These automatic rules help you bypass your emotional default, because the environment nudges you toward better decisions before your reactive system takes over. This work on defaults and strengths naturally leads into Parrish's structured decision-making framework. He proposes a 4-step process: define the problem, explore possible solutions, evaluate the options, and execute thoughtfully. Defining the problem well is the most crucial step, because if you misdiagnose what's really going on, every subsequent decision is more likely to be flawed. He encourages us to dig past symptoms to root causes, and to use clarity rather than jargon in articulating what truly matters. Once the problem is defined, you generate multiple, at least 3, possible solutions instead of settling on the first idea. That multiplicity forces creativity and encourages second-level thinking about long-term consequences. Then, when you evaluate the options, you apply clear criteria: what success really looks like, what the risks are, and what you might be giving up, opportunity cost. Finally, you act, but with deliberate thoughtfulness. For reversible decisions, you move fast. For high-consequence decisions, you build in more caution and use a margin of safety. Integral to this decision process is Parrish's concept of a margin of safety, borrowed from investing. Just as investors pad their bets to protect against extreme losses, clear thinkers should create buffers in different life domains. A financial buffer, saving for emergencies; a time buffer, not scheduling every minute; and a career buffer, developing skills outside their main job, so that when inevitable volatility hits, they don't make desperate or panicked calls. By building margin, you reduce the cost of error, giving yourself room to think, learn, and correct course when things go wrong. Mistakes, of course, will happen, and Parrish knows that. Rather than shame or ignore them, he advocates for a four-step process to handle them effectively. Accept responsibility, learn from them, commit to doing better, and repair damage when possible. This process embeds accountability and learning into your decision-making cycle. You don't just avoid errors, you extract wisdom from them. Over time, this reflection builds a decision muscle. Your capacity to think well and respond wisely strengthens. That leads into a higher level, more existential lesson. After building clarity and decision systems, you must consider what you truly want. Parrish argues it's not enough to make good decisions. You have to decide what good means in your life. He challenges readers to reflect on their values, long-term goals, and purpose. What do you really want? And how do you define success in a way that aligns with your deeper priorities, not external expectations or fleeting desires? He draws on ideas like memento mori, remembering the inevitability of death, to help readers frame their decisions around meaning, not just comfort or achievement. In weaving through these ideas, Parrish illustrates them with real-world relevance and stories. For example, he shows that many business and leadership failures stem not from a lack of intelligence, but from default reactions. When executives lash out emotionally, hide failure to protect their ego, follow groupthink, or refuse to adapt because inertia feels safer. These defaults don't just destroy companies. They erode trust, stifle innovation, and degrade relationships. On the other hand, people who develop the four strengths and apply his decision framework consistently create a clear thinking system that vastly improves their odds of making good, meaningful choices. From both an American and a global perspective, the lessons are deeply relevant. In high-pressure corporate environments in the U.S., the emotion and ego defaults often manifest in boardroom defensiveness, short-term decision-making, and poor risk management. In emerging markets around the world, social and inertia defaults may keep individuals trapped in conventional career paths, unable to pivot or think creatively because social approval or fear of unfamiliar change is too strong. But in both contexts, building internal strength, designing decision architecture, and creating buffers turns instability into opportunity. Importantly, Parrish's approach isn't about eliminating emotion or gut instinct entirely. Rather, it is about making space, creating room between stimulus and reaction so your conscious, rational mind can weigh in. That pause is where clarity lives. Over time, with repeated practice, you internalize that space. Your first reaction doesn't define you. The one you choose after pausing often does. One particularly powerful example: consider high-stakes global decision-makers, CEOs, political leaders, or executives in rapidly changing markets who make decisions under duress. Those who default to emotion or ego often make costly strategic errors. But those with clear thinking, who have self-knowledge, who define problems precisely, who build margins of safety, are better positioned to steward their organizations through turbulence. The same applies in personal life. Someone deciding whether to change careers, start a business, or make a large financial commitment can benefit enormously from Parrish's framework. In sum, Clear Thinking by Shane Parrish teaches us that the quality of our lives is determined by the quality of our decisions, which in turn is deeply influenced by how we think. By identifying and counteracting our mental defaults, cultivating internal strength, designing our environments, and applying a structured decision-making process, we can dramatically improve our judgments. Moreover, by regularly reflecting on our mistakes and aligning our decisions with what truly matters, we don't just make better choices. We build a life of clarity, purpose, and resilience. Building on the foundations of Part 1, Parrish deepens the discussion of mental models as the essential scaffolding for superior judgment. He emphasizes that clear thinking isn't just about avoiding common mistakes. It's about constructing a mental toolkit that allows you to view problems from multiple perspectives. Mental models, he argues, are frameworks for understanding how the world works. They allow you to step outside immediate pressures, see patterns others miss, and evaluate options with clarity. In practice, this means understanding concepts like opportunity cost, probability, feedback loops, incentive structures, and second-order consequences. The first lesson emerging here is that complex problems require multiple lenses. Relying on a single perspective, such as intuition or past experience alone, can mislead. Parrish points to how global corporations in America often fail not because of flawed products, but because decision-makers ignore secondary effects, misalign incentives, or underestimate systemic risks. Similarly, in Europe and Asia, startups fail when founders focus purely on immediate revenue without considering brand erosion, regulatory shifts, or competitor reactions. Mental models force deliberate consideration of these broader effects. This naturally leads to a second lesson, learning to think probabilistically rather than deterministically. Parrish argues that many errors arise from seeing outcomes as binary. Something will either succeed or fail, instead of considering likelihoods. For example, in financial markets, a trader who sees a trade as either win or lose ignores probability, expected value, and risk-adjusted outcomes. In the U.S., investors who embraced a probabilistic mindset survived the 2008 financial crisis better because they diversified portfolios and assessed risk instead of betting everything on certainty. Globally, entrepreneurs in volatile markets, such as in India or Nigeria, rely on probability thinking to hedge against supply chain disruptions or currency fluctuations. The lesson is clear. Probabilistic thinking turns uncertainty from a source of fear into an analytical advantage. From probability thinking emerges the lesson of feedback loops and iterative improvement. Parrish illustrates that clear thinkers constantly monitor outcomes, extract patterns, and adjust decisions. Businesses like Amazon exemplify this. Jeff Bezos built systems where feedback from customers informs product iterations, improving results over time. Similarly, American athletes who study performance data to refine training regimens embody the same principle. Globally, farmers in Southeast Asia use real-time weather and market feedback to optimize crop choices, and tech entrepreneurs in Brazil iterate MVPs based on user response. The common thread: feedback loops convert mistakes and results into actionable knowledge, accelerating learning and reducing wasted effort. Another critical lesson is reducing cognitive biases through structured processes. Parrish identifies biases like confirmation bias, anchoring, overconfidence, and availability heuristic as consistent obstacles to clear thinking. The antidote is systems that force objectivity: checklists, pre-mortems, devil's advocacy, and structured decision frameworks. In American corporate culture, pre-mortems are used to anticipate potential failures before launching projects. Globally, organizations in Japan, Germany, and Singapore employ Kaizen, continuous improvement, to reduce errors and biases systematically. The embedded lesson: human intuition is powerful but fallible. Structured processes harness that power while mitigating error. From bias management flows the lesson of managing information and attention. Parrish warns that in the digital age, attention is a scarce resource. The world bombards us with information, social media, news, notifications, much of which is irrelevant or emotionally charged. Clear thinkers deliberately curate their information diet and create boundaries for attention. In the U.S., successful investors, entrepreneurs, and leaders often limit news consumption to essential sources, avoiding sensationalism. Globally, professionals in Europe, Africa, and Asia increasingly adopt digital minimalism, limiting exposure to distraction while focusing on high-value knowledge. Lesson: control over attention translates directly into control over decision quality. Next, Parrish emphasizes the interplay of patience and decisiveness. Clear thinking requires balancing the discipline to wait for sufficient evidence with the courage to act decisively once enough information is available. This lesson resonates in American venture capital, where investors often wait to observe market traction before deploying capital but act quickly once a pattern emerges. Similarly, in Asian markets, entrepreneurs monitor trends carefully but rapidly scale once they validate demand. Globally, the ability to balance patience and action separates consistent success from reactionary decision-making. Parrish further integrates this with the lesson of emotional regulation. Human beings frequently overreact to stress, failure, or social pressure, clouding judgment. Clear thinkers develop routines to manage emotions: meditation, journaling, reflection, or deliberate pauses before reacting. In American leadership, CEOs like Satya Nadella at Microsoft model emotional composure. enabling strategic long-term decisions even during crises. Globally, leaders in Japan and Scandinavia cultivate calm, measured responses, avoiding impulsive actions. Lesson: emotional mastery enables clarity, allowing logical principles to guide high-stakes decisions. Another natural progression is the importance of understanding incentives and human behavior. Parrish asserts that every system has actors, and each actor has motivations. Decisions fail when incentives are misaligned or when behavior is misunderstood. In the U.S., misaligned incentives in financial systems contributed to the 2008 crisis. Globally, in corporate supply chains, lack of incentive alignment leads to inefficiencies and conflicts. The embedded lesson: understanding incentives transforms strategy from guesswork into predictive insight, making clear thinking actionable in social systems. Parrish also underscores the role of narrative and storytelling in shaping decisions, warning that humans over-rely on stories at the expense of data. Clear thinkers evaluate narratives critically, distinguishing compelling stories from actionable truth. In America, marketing campaigns often succeed because of persuasive stories, but investors or leaders must look past the narrative to fundamentals. Globally, political campaigns and business proposals often employ similar storytelling techniques. Discerning leaders evaluate evidence beneath the story. Lesson: clear thinking requires separating compelling stories from reality. Finally, Part 2 introduces the principle of synthesis and simplification. Parrish stresses that complexity can paralyze. Clear thinkers distill problems into essential variables, identify the core drivers, and avoid unnecessary complication. In American tech, Elon Musk's approach with SpaceX and Tesla focuses on key levers: cost, engineering, and execution. Globally, NGOs in Africa and Asia simplify complex social interventions into measurable, actionable steps. Lesson: simplicity amplifies understanding, reduces error, and enhances execution. The final part of the book deepens Parrish's exploration of decision architecture, emphasizing that clear thinking isn't just a mental exercise. It requires designing environments that systematically support rational choices. He argues that even the most disciplined minds will succumb to defaults if their surroundings constantly trigger emotional, social, or ego-driven responses. Therefore, deliberate design of habits, routines, and choice architecture is essential. In America, for example, top hedge funds implement decision protocols, committees, and stepwise approvals to prevent individual biases from dictating major investment choices. Globally, in companies across Singapore, Germany, and South Africa, standardized operating procedures reduce errors and ensure consistency, even under pressure. The lesson is clear: the environment can amplify or undermine mental clarity, so shaping it is a critical step in building a system for better decisions. From environmental design emerges the principle of reducing complexity to increase focus. Parrish emphasizes that humans have limited cognitive bandwidth. Overloading the brain with choices, information, or simultaneous tasks diminishes the quality of thinking. In the American corporate world, leaders often adopt decision minimalism, automating routine decisions, delegating less essential tasks, and simplifying workflows to reserve cognitive energy for high-impact decisions. Globally, in fast-growing startups in India, Kenya, or Brazil, founders learn to focus on 3 or 4 key metrics rather than dozens of vanity metrics, concentrating their attention where it matters most. The embedded lesson: clarity thrives in simplicity. This focus naturally leads to the importance of mental preparation and rehearsal. Parrish highlights that clear thinking isn't only applied at the moment of decision, it's prepared for in advance. Military strategy, professional sports, and competitive business illustrate this principle vividly. In the United States, NFL quarterbacks practice reading defenses repeatedly to anticipate game situations before they occur. Globally, pilots, surgeons, and CEOs rehearse critical scenarios mentally or through simulations to reduce error under pressure. The lesson: preparation transforms reactive thinking into proactive mastery. Another core principle is the deliberate management of social influence. Humans are inherently social creatures, and social defaults, following the crowd, seeking approval, or imitating peers, can derail rational thinking. Parrish underscores that clear thinkers must selectively filter social input, seeking diverse, independent perspectives rather than consensus-driven noise. In America, venture capitalists often solicit contrarian viewpoints to stress-test assumptions. Globally, innovative companies in Japan, Scandinavia, and emerging markets succeed when they encourage dissent and challenge orthodoxy rather than blindly following trends. Lesson: social awareness combined with selective independence protects clarity. Parrish then expands on the necessity of reflection and calibration. A clear thinker doesn't just act and move on. They continuously review outcomes, isolate mistakes, and adjust mental models. In American tech, companies like Amazon run postmortems to identify process failures and prevent future mistakes. Globally, urban planners in Europe and policymakers in Asia conduct policy reviews to assess efficacy, often modifying strategies based on evidence. For individuals, journaling, mindfulness, and structured retrospectives reinforce learning. Lesson: reflection converts experience into wisdom, and wisdom enhances future decisions. From reflection flows the integration of intuition with structured thinking. Parrish acknowledges that intuition, developed through deep experience, can be a powerful guide, but only when calibrated with logic and evidence. In America, seasoned traders and executives often use intuitive gut checks informed by years of pattern recognition, but they combine these instincts with quantitative analysis. Globally, medical professionals and engineers similarly balance intuition with structured protocols, avoiding errors from over-reliance on either approach. The embedded lesson: intuition is a complement, not a replacement, for deliberate thinking. Another critical lesson is building mental resilience to handle uncertainty and ambiguity. Parrish notes that many poor decisions arise from discomfort with uncertainty. Clear thinkers accept that not all variables are known and embrace a probabilistic mindset. During the COVID-19 pandemic, American business leaders who acknowledged uncertainty, adapting supply chains, implementing flexible work models, and scenario planning, navigated crises more effectively. Globally, leaders in Europe, Africa, and Asia adapted similarly, balancing risk and opportunity amidst volatility. Lesson: resilience is rooted in accepting uncertainty, not pretending it doesn't exist. From resilience emerges the strategic use of time as a decision amplifier. Parrish emphasizes that time can clarify choices. Delaying non-urgent decisions allows better information to accumulate, while rapid action is reserved for reversible or low-risk decisions. In the U.S., seasoned investors often sleep on major trades, letting overnight developments inform judgment. Globally, negotiators in Asia and the Middle East practice patience, using delay as a tool to observe behavior and gather intelligence. Lesson: disciplined management of time improves quality and outcomes of decisions. Finally, Parrish brings together all these lessons into a systemic approach to life and work. Clear thinking, he argues, is not about sporadic brilliance or rigid rules. It is a self-reinforcing ecosystem of habits, mental models, environmental design, reflection, and strategic action. When practiced consistently, it manifests as superior judgment across career, finance, relationships, and personal growth. For instance, American entrepreneurs who combine preparation, feedback loops, social filtering, and reflection consistently outperform peers. Globally, similar results are evident in innovators in India, Africa, and Europe who apply clear thinking principles to scale businesses, manage complex projects, and adapt to uncertainty. A particularly powerful insight Parrish emphasizes is identity as the foundation of decision quality. Your actions follow your self-conception. Those who see themselves as disciplined, reflective, and rational are more likely to act in alignment with these traits. Late career professionals in the U.S. who adopt a learner identity often pivot successfully into new industries. Globally, career changers in Japan, Brazil, and Kenya leverage the same identity shift to navigate complex transitions. Lesson: cultivating a clear thinking identity amplifies every other principle. If this message resonated with you, subscribe and join us for more wisdom that fuels growth.